All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started talking about how we can take your live stream at your school or your broadcast, the ideas from camera to community, and boost the impact of your live stream. So, super excited to get to talk about this. Again, live streaming isn't just about pointing a camera. It's storytelling, right? It's communication, it's community building. You have cameras at your school that are sharing out to whoever wants to tune in, and you can be in control of what gets pushed out, right? What gets sent out. So, super excited to talk about this. So, the first slide I wanted to start with, this was kind of a funny one. Cool kind of grandma up there. If my grandma looked like that, I would definitely ask her for feedback. So it just the idea of when I was a student broadcaster, I always had my grandparents listening to what I was doing, and they would provide me feedback whether I actually asked for it or not, right? They were not afraid. And it was even so funny that my grandma would be in the gym watching the game live, but if I was broadcasting, she'd have the phone up to her ear listening to it. And there's, a 30-second delay, and she'd be like, I'd see her kind of nodding along if I said something good, or if I saw her kind of shake her head, I'm like, oh, what did I say 30 seconds ago that maybe she didn't agree with, or whatever the case may be. But how can we interact with the community through our live stream and the alumni and fans who cannot be there at the game? So why are we even talking about this with broadcast and live streaming? We did a survey at the end of 2024. We called it our Digital Media Trends Report. And at that time, 88% of the schools that we were able to kind of survey were streaming. There was probably 12% that weren't, right? That's the other half of the 88, or the other part. And I haven't officially looked, but I would guess that they are live streaming now, right? I can think of a couple of schools in my head that probably said they weren't, that now have something in place, even if it's a small, simple YouTube live stream where it's one camera and an announcer, right? So everyone's doing it, especially here in the state of Nebraska. What are the benefits? Families feel more connected to school activities. My grandparents can tune in at any time I live in Sutton, so a Sutton activity. And when the Sutton stream is on Strive, they can watch, right? When I, have family members in Iowa who are playing varsity athletics, their broadcast goes through, it was NFHS Network. It might be Huddle now. I haven't kept up super well, but I can watch my cousin play sports at any point in time, right? And I don't have to drive the 4-hour drive that it would take to get there. So that's the benefit of it, right? Live streaming is visibility to your school. It's taking pride in your school, and it's a professional learning opportunity for your students. A few of the reasons that schools struggle with live streaming, though, is because, quite honestly, most of the time the teacher put in charge has limited to no formal training. We see it a lot. Some of the teachers that we have are science teachers. Some are English teachers. Some are actually digital media teachers, but have just never, delved into the world of broadcasting. And so, at least for the time being, we see a lot of teachers who are kind of coming across from a part of digital media, but are entering broadcasting. So they need help finding the way. Or they're the teacher that the administration comes and says, hey, we're going to do a live stream. And then they set no expectations. What does that mean? Are we doing varsity events only? Are we adding in JV? What sports are we covering? Do we have to do the wrestling meet? We probably should do the wrestling meet. If we're doing basketball and football and volleyball, are we doing, concerts? Are we doing any programs that we have, right? What are the expectations? And agree to those before you even get started, right? Because if you don't, that's when you get, the last minute call, hey, I need you to broadcast this. And you, as a teacher, were maybe like, I didn't think we were broadcasting this, right? And we don't want it to lead to a dispute later. We want to kind of hash that stuff out before you even get started. So especially here as we're at the end of fall sports and beginning the winter sports season, if you haven't had a conversation that says, what exactly are the events that we're broadcasting in this winter season, have that conversation. Know what's coming up, because we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but that's part of the preparation. And then another thing that schools will struggle with their broadcasts is they'll do it, but they might get 20 viewers, 30 viewers. And sometimes that's due to lack of promotion. When I have, the Sutton team goes to play someplace else, if it's a school that they're going to that's a Strive school, I know where that game is going to be, courtesy of the fact that I work for Strive. So I know who we have and who we don't. But when they go to other schools and you don't know whether they're on NFHS Network or YouTube or Facebook Live or Huddle, you just don't know where they are, and they don't promote it. And so you're sitting there like, where do I go to find this game? And it might take longer for you to find it, maybe even just give up on it, right? And so we want to be able to promote these streams, and especially the streams where we have students involved in the broadcast and actively helping. So the best part of all these problems, the main reasons why schools struggle, is that students can help fix all the problems, right? These are not just, it's up to me as the teacher to solve it. It's a teacher plus students, right? So here's the 4 things we're going to kind of cover as we go throughout this presentation here about how we go about solving these problems, right? How do we plan and promote the live streams and make sure that we're connecting with our audience? How do we improve the production quality? How do we train our students to fill all these roles, any and all of these roles, right? That's a big part that I didn't add into that line there, but how can the students be versatile? And then how can we boost engagement before, during, and after the broadcast? So I like to say that every great broadcast starts with preparation. In fact, anything that's well done starts with preparation. I prepared for this webinar. I didn't just show up here with my slides pre-made by somebody and just start talking, right? I've put a lot of thought into this. Actually, I was telling Taylor, this is the most excited webinar I've been excited about. Like, I ran through it this morning, and like I didn't crack open my Red Bull yet, and I was fired up, and I couldn't wait for 3:30, right? Because this is good stuff. So when it comes to preparation for your broadcast, there are a few things that cost $0, right? Every solution I'm going to give you today, here's a hint, it costs nothing. It just takes time. But if you do it right, it'll save you a bunch of time, right? It takes a little bit of time to save a lot of time. So we create production plans, right? A run of show is the typical broadcast term. We call them run sheets. If you're a Strive school, there's your crew roles page, and then your checklist. So we're actually going to look at some examples of those here right away. So on the left, what we see is a run sheet that we at Strive have kind of copied and made of our own, right? So this is, if you look at the top, it's Saturday game 7. So that tells me that we were doing the Heartland Hoops Classic, and it was the 7th game of the day. And if you know anything about trying to pull off multiple streams in one day, it takes a lot of energy. So naturally, one could assume that we were just going to kind of, do less of a full production. But actually, the 7th game of the day was the biggest one yet. It had the academy teams. This was the broadcast we had to go all out for. And so as you can see, with 30 minutes prior to tip-off, we were going to start the stream, right? We're going to make sure it's live. Because it was game 7, we kind of just rolled throughout the day. So it was already live at that point, but this is just a mental checklist. Is it live? We're going to have it on a wide arena shot with a graphic that says live stream will continue, and we'll have some music on a loop underneath it so that people know, hey, nobody's talking yet, but the stream is live. Especially we paywalled it, so we wanted to make sure that there was content playing when they logged in and purchased the game. Then we knew at 10 minutes until tip-off, we were going to begin our open, and our producer was going to hit record on our streaming software. We went to the opener. It was a 17-second little media clip. And then we went to a wide shot with our announcers beginning their open that they had scripted out. We put a matchup graphic on there, and we made sure that we had audio from their headsets. As you go on down the list, you can see we had announcer nub, which we have an example of later on, and a player lower third. And then after covering those things, we took a break. It was only a minute break. We were back to finish the open. Then we were in the game. So the reason we have a spreadsheet looking document like this is that when we started the crew on game 7, I handed this paper to everyone, and everyone could read through and know exactly what we were doing and at what spot in the order we were on, right? So how could this work for your high school? Well, let's say that you have a dance team that's going to be doing something at halftime, and you want to cover that on the broadcast. As you go throughout your open, you insert into halftime, hey, cover the dance team. That might be something that you as a teacher had a conversation with the AD about, or a student found that out, but not everyone knows it. When you put it into the run sheet, everyone knows it because everyone's looked at it. Your announcers know, hey, we need to send it to the dance team, and your camera people know, hey, we can't just leave during halftime. We've got to cover this and make sure the people at home can see it. So that's the biggest thing about a run sheet is it's not only does it keep your advertising kind of tracked and scheduled in, but it keeps everything else on schedule and everyone on the same page. Now on the right, we have what I would call a crew roles, kind of a responsibilities page, right? And this is a part of our student broadcasting playbook, which is available if you are a broadcast education school with us. And the idea is you write out so crystal clearly the responsibilities that a student will have in that role that they stop asking you questions about what should I do now? What should I do next? Right? So as we look at this for the producer, we have pre-planning, we have pre-game, we have in-game, and we have post-game, right? So pre-planning, what should they be doing in class or in their free time? You know, if it's a club, what should they be doing outside of class in preparation for the game? When they get to the game, before warm-ups even start, what should they be doing? When it's the game's going on, what are their responsibilities? And then after the game's over, how can they help clean up, pack up, and finalize their responsibilities? Again, you give them the sheet, and it's honestly, it's something that you make at the beginning of the year or now at this point. And once you make it, you should only have to update it, right? You'll never have to create this again from scratch. You'll just update as things adjust. And I go back to think like when I was in high school and I had first day of math class. My dad is a math teacher. He was also the head boys basketball coach. On day one of math, we got the syllabus and we got basically a list that said, I will follow these rules, right? Well, with this responsibilities list, what you're doing is you're telling your students, hey, you signed a little paper that said, I understand what my responsibilities will be if I'm in this role. And then they follow it, right? And we're dealing with high school kids. If they can't follow a list, life's going to be somewhat tough for them until they can figure out how to do that, right? So this is how you allow high school students to take a little bit of ownership, take a little bit of leadership in themselves, and go through this list and understand what they're supposed to do. And as you delegate, as the teachers, you delegate these responsibilities to your students, you find that you're doing less, which saves you time. And you can you move that time to focus on something else if you want, but really it frees up time, which is the goal. And then this final thing is a checklist, right? So I'm a little bit of a nerd. I play some weird games that other people wouldn't play, like Microsoft Flight Simulator, where I fly planes. It's a weird thing. I get it. But I go through a checklist. And real life pilots go through a checklist too, right? It's not that they don't know how to fly the plane. It's not that they don't know how to start everything. But the checklist is there to make sure that they get a same repeatable output, right? So that every time they do it, here's what they should expect. It's a standard, right? And so, connection restored. Okay, sorry, I just saw an unstable connection there. Am I still good, Taylor? Just thumbs up? Okay. So pilots have a checklist. So your crew can also have a checklist, right? What are we doing to go live? What needs to be done? And mark it off the list, right? It's not showing that you don't know how to do it. It's showing that you want it to be the same every single time. And that's a powerful tool. And so there's a few broadcasts that we work with, a few schools that have stuff like this. But I know talking to them, we released this going live checklist a couple years ago, I think, and received some pretty big feedback on it. So I continually like to remind people, hey, have a going live checklist, but also for your camera person to set up, have a checklist for the order in which everything gets plugged in, set up, put away. That way you don't have to be the one that reminds them, hey, this is how we do it. To finish up that slide, a couple other things that are maybe more on the simple side, but just getting your broadcast location ahead of time. You know, there have been times I've walked into my own high school when I was doing it, and the radio guy would be there before me and would try to start setting up in my spot. Well, this is my spot, and I was supposed to have it. Well, if I would have set up sooner and had my stuff there, radio guy would have taken my spot. It also just, I'll give you this as an example. Last Friday, we did semifinal football games all across the state. I got to my location 3 hours ahead of time. Now, I'm not saying you need to get to your home gym 3 hours before the game starts. But if you're not there an hour before, that's maybe something you start looking at just to get everything set up, make sure everything's working. It never hurts to be over prepared and there ahead of time, right? It never hurts you.
I know a lot of schools, Hoosier will go and set up during class too, so that helps. And I would hope your AD is going to mark your spot and tell others that, but you can never assume. You can never assume.
And sometimes that communication with a radio station and AD happens over an email, and the radio guy shows up and he just assumes, hey, this is my spot. This is the best spot to call it from. But yeah, like you said, Taylor, there's a lot of schools that will set up during class, which is awesome, but still getting there to make sure that nobody's disturbed anything. Weirder things have happened, and so I always just say be prepared, right? But yeah, have open communication with your AD and coaches, like what is going to happen during today's game. Sometimes, if they're honoring teammates, that's a thing that happens at a lot of schools. Hey, are we going to have that at halftime? We're going to have the dance team. Are we going to have, Knights of Columbus free throw shooters? There's just all of these different elements that, ADs know that it's going to happen at this time, but sometimes they don't tell the broadcast team. And if you want to highlight it and showcase that to your fans, alumni, community, you need to know about that so you're not caught off guard. And then have backup plans in place so that you can always be live. If you are hardline, make sure you still have Wi-Fi access. Make sure you potentially have a mobile hotspot. Like, always make sure you have a way to go live. That's a big deal. The next slide, I feel a little bad for saying this because it used to be the joke. Like if you don't see it posted, did it actually happen, right? If you didn't promote it, did it actually happen? Well, yes, the game happened, but if your students have made graphics for the game, like share it online. Don't just use some in-broadcast ones. Like, promote your stream online. I've got an example here in a second, and I'm glad that Steven's on here because I'm going to hype up MPS from the Nest. Because Milford does a fantastic job of promoting their stream. But have your students make graphics to promote it. Again, that goes back to the idea that sometimes I don't know that a school is actually broadcasting the game because it's nowhere on their social. It's not on their website. And I have to then go search the individual platforms, which can be a pain at the best, right? Because every platform is large. So, encourage your students to share what they're doing too. Do some BTS stuff like, hey, here's how our crew is. Like hype them up because this is a real world learning environment for students. And we've tried to do that on our end at Strive Education for when we do state events and any of our events that we do, we try to highlight the students behind it because then your community sees, oh, hey, this isn't just, the teachers, the adults doing it. These are kids putting on a presentation. And sometimes that's enough to change their tone when they give you feedback on what's wrong. And sometimes they become a little bit more understanding. And if you've done student-led broadcasting, you know what I mean by more understanding. So yeah, this was the post for sub-district championship game. Not sure if Steven was the actual one who made it, but anyway, it was from the Milford Broadcasting, and they have their links, and they have the time, and they have the date, and that's where to watch it, and here's what's going on. And I'd say even if that brought in an extra 20 people to view it, that's 20 people that wouldn't have known that it was going to be on a stream, right? So it doesn't hurt to promote your stream, especially if it's something that you take pride in and you really want people to see. Now, when we talk about student crews, we have some different roles, and your student crew is really the heart of the stream. So I want to talk about some of the roles that they can fill, right? Sometimes we don't always understand exactly what each role is responsible for too, right? Sometimes we throw out these words, oh, I'm the producer, but what does that actually mean, right? Well, your producer's job is to make sure that the audio from the announcers and commercials and crowd mic is all coming into your streaming software, and it sounds good. Have to make sure that the graphics are loaded right and will go to the right spot when they need it, and that all of your video input is, actually coming into the software the right way, right? The director has to make sure that all the cameras are getting to their switcher, but the producer is the one that's making sure that the video feed, the final mixed output from the director, is getting to the streaming software, right? Your camera operators, they're working to capture every moment using different angles. Every gym is unique, which is why I don't have a representation of where you should put your cameras. Now, there are certain standards, like you have to have a main camera at half court up high. That is a must, or as close to half court as you can get it. Some gyms, it's not possible, but try to keep it as close to half court so that we're even on both sides. And then if you have multiple cameras, you can do any combination, right? You can have your second camera right next to your main and have it be a tight ISO shot, a hero shot. You can have your floor camera on either end of the floor. Or sometimes what we've done with 3 cameras is we have a main, then we do a slash that's still on that top row of bleachers, but in the corner. And then on the opposite side of the court, we put the wireless camera on the floor. That way we see faces from 2 of our angles. One's just up high in a corner and the other's down court level, right? And if you don't have technology to do wireless cameras, we can absolutely help you get wireless video technology through Strive Audiovisual. So if that is something you need, for sure let us know. Either Taylor or I can get you settled with that stuff. So again, your camera ops, their job is to tell the story with their camera and give the best feed they can get to the director. The director then is the one that makes sure the story is being told through the video. Is a coach, a little unhappy? Can we show that? Can we show that through video? Or is the student section have like a really bright pink theme? Are we showing that? Are we making people watching online feel like they're in the gym? That's the job, right? Making them feel like they're there and giving them a little extra, maybe some better views than other people could get because they are watching the stream. And then your announcer's job is to engage and inform the audience, right? If your announcers can do some more homework, basically the thought process is, if I watch from home, I should be better off because I'm getting more knowledge than the person sitting in the stands would get. And if your announcers can do that, then they're doing their job right. So speaking of roles, just want to take a quick moment to announce this, not only to our current schools, but any schools that might want to work with us in the future. We have just completed our director's course for Strive Education. So this idea, we've had this idea for a director's course, for a certification course, for a long time. And we have finally had the time to get around and make it. And I was really encouraged when we went to our sports media workshop at Midland University. Taylor, how many weeks ago was that? It feels like a lot, like a year, but it wasn't that long ago.
1 month.
1 month. Okay. So 1 month ago, we were at Midland University, and we had a bunch of schools, and we had Johnson County Central's big, setup of their TriCaster and other gear. And just to get to debrief with the students after they ran through it, there was a lot of talk about like, hey, I'm the director and I'm switching cameras, but I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like sometimes like I'd see a student switch to a secondary camera in the middle of the play, right? And so a thing that I kept repeating over and over in the debrief was, remember, we're on camera 1 for the action and your secondary cameras for the reaction, right? And so I was like, if I'm having to repeat this to enough people, maybe we really do need something in place to let them go through so that they understand what they're doing. So we will be releasing that December 1st. If you are a school that works with us, I'll be sending you a direct email with how to get in there. If that's something that a school wants to work with us on, feel free to reach out to Taylor or I, and we can work on a plan for you guys to get access to that. Again, just kind of a brief kind of bullet points of it. Yes, there is the technical side of how to be a director, but I also focused on a little bit of, the student has to lead the crew. You are the student in charge of your camera people. And so how can you be confident in your calls? How can you be calm when you're doing it? And how can you be in control of your camera people? That way, what the viewers see on the other end is a professional looking broadcast, right? How can you manage the pressure if a camera goes down? Like what are those things that you can be focused on to fix or not to fix? And then how can you tell the story of the game? Because again, it's not just always the action on the court or on the field, which obviously is the most important, but there are other elements in the gym that add to that environment. And then the last thing that the course really does is it teaches students, like, you're no longer just watching the game. This is not something that you are passively doing. You are actively in control of what the viewer at home sees. Like, you're directing the show. So have the confidence, step up into it, and become a director. So I'm super excited for kids to get to go through this certification course and to see how it helps them improve their school's broadcast, right? So, all right, improving production quality. Now, this is something that a lot of times when I would say, hey, let's improve our production quality, a teacher would say, how much money do I need to spend? And I'm like, that's not the question. That's not the first question you should be asking. Although if you are willing to spend money, I'm not going to say no. I will help you buy new gear. I'm not opposed to that. But there are some very simple, free things that you can do to improve the quality of your broadcast, right? First thing starts with camera angles, right? What shows the best action? Like we talked about, everyone's gym is different, right? So what's going to be the best case scenario for you? Are your tripods leveled? I remember we had a clip that we put on YouTube a couple years ago when we were doing our tech and teaching podcast, and level your tripod was like the most famous clip ever. And I was like, oh, there's so many people that have seen this. Like, I hope that many more people have actually leveled their tripod before they do a broadcast. And to be fair, a lot of our Strive schools do a great job of that, right? So how can we make sure that the camera's set up in a spot that doesn't have people standing in front of you, if you can, and it's leveled? And even skipping down to bullet point number 4, like, how's the lighting, the exposure, the white balance? It's very important when you get multiple cameras. For your audio, you know, the saying is audio is half of video, right? So how are your levels? Like, we have ran into this problem before on some of the productions we've done. When we do our state events, the commercials that we have to play, or the advertisements that we have to play, do not all come to us at the same volume level, right? Some are at the -3 decibels, some are down at -20, some are at -12. So it's the producer's job with the software to level all of that out, right? Because the last thing a viewer at home wants to do is have to have the remote in their hand, turning it down when the commercials play and back up when a student's talking, because they can barely hear the announcers, right? Or even worse is one announcer is way louder than the other, right? And so you have to continually adjust for that. That should be done, again, no money spent at all. It just takes a little bit of intention to make sure that that's set right. A little extra time makes a much more enjoyable experience for your viewers. Things like EQ, right? And this is not super technical or hard to learn, although some people will think it is. But if you have a student who every time they say, you know, a word that starts with like a P and it like pops, if it pops and you can hear that pop, go to the low end on your soundboard and turn it down, right? Not all the way down, but turn it down until it kind of removes that effect. Or if you have a high pass filter or a low cut, enable that, right? Or if there's a lot of hissing, a lot of the S sound, or you're outside and there's a lot of wind, take that high EQ and turn that down as well, right? So there's a mini lesson in EQ, equalizer. There's a lot more to it than that, but that'll get you started, right? And again, realizing that some people in charge of broadcast have little to no formal training on these things. It sounds like a basic thing, but even the basic things make a huge difference, right? And then is your crowd mic set up right? I loved our streaming setup at Sutton. I still do, because we are on the visitor side. And so we always knew that if a visitor said something, if somebody said something wrong on stream and it was from the crowd mic, it wasn't a Sutton person. It was somebody from the other team. However, we would, as broadcasters, like to completely avoid that, right? And so if your microphone, your crowd mic, is pointed down and it's capturing, what were the names I came up with? Julie and Karen. If Julie and Karen are having a discussion about a family member in front of you, you don't want to hear that on the broadcast. You want that mic at that point the mic up in the sky and let it catch whatever else other than that conversation on the broadcast, because we don't want to hear that. We want to hear the announcers, and we want to hear the squeaks of the shoes on the floor or the cracking of the pads on the football field, right? Those are the sounds that we want to pick up with a crowd mic. And then for graphics, using lower thirds, right? How are you putting overlays on your screen during your broadcast to add more context? We're not just putting up a graphic to put up a graphic, right? It has to be purposeful. It has to add. And so I've got a few examples here and a couple slides that can be how you can use some of your lower thirds or graphics to your advantage. And then we already talked about the camera, lighting, and white balance. So here's the main idea. The best thing to always think about. So I love sticky notes, right? I have like 5 sticky notes on the bottom of my computer screen in front of me. I'm going to show you one of them, right? So this is a sticky note. You probably can't read it, but I'll tell you. It says, "Get out of the garage and onto the track," right? I was having a hard time. I had lots of ideas, but then I never actually put those ideas into practice, right? And so me and Taylor were talking, and Taylor was like, "Hey, by the way, you're big into racing. You like the Formula One and NASCAR." I said, "Absolutely. Like, there's only so much testing you can do in a garage before you actually have to get out on the track and try it." And I was like, smart. So there came the saying, get out of the garage and onto the track. Do that with your broadcast, right? But also, if you want to write down a saying, make viewers feel like they are there. If you enter every broadcast, oh, nice, there's Formula One in the chat. Love it. They're in Vegas this weekend. So Taylor, remember I said the only time I'd go back to Vegas is for Formula One. If you don't hear from me tomorrow, you know where I'm at. No, I'm not going to Vegas. I wish. But if you can do every broadcast, and the one thing in every student's mind is make the viewers feel like they are there, that intention is gonna help you make decisions that are just gonna, take that production quality way up there, right? Like when you have that mindset, it's incredible, right? So how do we do that? We start with a strong broadcast open. When our announcers are ready to talk and our cameras are ready to move, we are showing the entirety of the gym if we can. We are trying to find a shot that says, "Hey, here's how many people are here. Here's what the student section looks like. They've got a band. We're showing a clip of the band. Who's the best players? We're showing that. We're showing the coaches. We're establishing," right? And when you're doing videos and films, they talk about an establishing shot. We are establishing ourselves as a broadcast at the very beginning, right? Another thing that we can do is we can use graphics to promote not only this current game with our lower thirds and other things, but we can promote the next streams or the next games for each team. A lot of professional broadcasts, you'll see this on a Husker football game where it's like, "Hey, here are the next 3 opponents for the Huskers." And if they're being broadcasted by a company, they'll put who's doing it. Do that with your streams. Like, it costs $0. It just takes a little bit of time to look at a schedule, make a cool looking graphic. If it's home, and you don't even have to designate who's broadcasting it at the away games, but just put a little asterisk next to it if it's a home game and you're going to broadcast it. That's all it has to be. And that way people who are watching, who watch all the time, can be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that there's a game next Tuesday and it's at home and it starts at this time and I can watch it on this again," right? So that constant reminder to people like, "Hey, we want you to come back and watch more." And you do that by promoting the next events. Encourage your announcers to mention, people that are watching or family members or school events. Like, I had always by me when I was announcing for the 3 years I did in high school, I always had a notepad. And because people knew that I would do it, I would have, family members of players come up to me and say, "Hey, could you give a shout out to so-and-so watching from Hawaii?" And I'm like, well, first off, the fact that they're watching in Hawaii is kind of cool. Like, I'm glad that they're able to still get our coverage down there. But people love it that they're watching and they get a shout out. I had a former principal who would tell you that she had my phone number because I did lawn maintenance for her, and she would text me all the time and be like, "Hey, watching the stream, you're doing a great job." And so I'd give her a shout out. Like, make people feel welcome to be watching the stream. Don't make it feel so robotic. Like, obviously the professionals have a professional standard, but these students are learning this skill, and when you invite people into that broadcast, they feel like they're a part of something, right? They feel like they're at the game. And then shout out sponsors, right? If you got sponsors, make sure you're talking about them, and again, make it a friendly environment, right? So I threw this graphic together quick, which would explain why I don't do a lot of graphic work, because the text is way outsized. Steven would probably be a good one. I should have messaged Steven and said, hey, make me a lower third that says where you're watching from. But something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be the left third. It could be something smaller, but put a social media account that you want people to tag you at, right? Like, people had my social media, so they knew my it was Twitter at the time, so they knew it, and they would say, hey, watching the game from so-and-so. And I was like, that's really cool. Or I knew certain teachers would be watching, so I'd give them a shout out. Like, just little things like that you can do as a high school broadcast that really makes it cool.
I think we all get messages too. Sorry to interrupt. When things don't go well, hey, send us a message, or you're getting that text as well. So it can be great to hold you accountable to the standard you want to have every time you broadcast.
Yeah. And it shows like you do care, right? Like, you're not just doing this to do it. You want to know where people are from. It's kind of hospitality 101. Like, you ask people, hey, where are you from? I do that all the time when I meet someone that I've never met before. One of the first questions, like, hey, where are you from? So why don't we do it on the broadcast? Another one, and obviously Eric doesn't work with us anymore, but I pulled this one out of the archives because I was like, I need something where we had the announcers on camera and some lower thirds. Tim Miles announced a Heartland Hoops Classic game with Eric, and so what we did on the lower thirds was we put their Twitter, again, at the time it was Twitter, this is confusing me, but their X handles, so that if people thought of something, they could message in. I was watching the state volleyball championships, and Larry Putney was on the mic, and he said something he wasn't quite sure about, and then obviously he's got a lot of connections, and somebody texted him. He's like, hey, thanks to whoever for helping me figure that out, right? So especially if you want students to build a portfolio, what better way than to have them look at social media and say, hey, not only am I posting behind the scenes of what I do or posting highlights of like my best call, but also I have this where viewers can message me, and maybe you do like a fun fact trivia. Maybe you do a trivia and you say, hey, tweet your answer or post your answer to this and tag this account, and we'll give a shout out to whoever got the right answer, right? Again, it's the interactive things. We always see the Aflac trivia on national broadcasts. That's cool. Well, we can do that at a high school level too, and it doesn't take any money. It just takes a little bit of time to make a graphic and to be intentional about it. And then what do we do after the game's over, right? So we talked about pre-production. We have what do we do during the game? What do we do when the game's over? And I get it. I've been there where there's been a home game on Monday, a home game on Thursday, and a home game on Friday. And by the end of the game on Friday, especially because it's girls, boys, doubleheaders, I've announced 6 games as a high schooler, and my voice hurts. I'm like, I don't want to do any more talking. But what can you do to continue posting, right? So can you do highlight clips on social media? Can you do, like, in volleyball, I have an example here from Marcus at Johnson County Central of like, hey, here was the last play. Here was match point. That's pretty cool to kind of put up there. Can you do a behind the scenes photo of your crew? Like I mentioned earlier, can you shout them out? Can you highlight them? What are you doing to like look at viewer counts and hear audience feedback, right? Like, are you compiling a list so that you can review it in class? And we talk about all of these improvements, and I'll get to it a little bit later, but doing one at a time. Like when I was at Trey Perry's class at McCool Junction last year, I've been to his class many times because he's close to where I live, and it's like, okay, they focused on one thing to improve in their broadcast, which was how they opened it. And so the next day was the day that I went to class. So after the broadcast, and he said, all right, we're starting class and we're going to review the opening of our broadcast. How do we think we did, right? We talked about it in class, but how did we actually execute on it? And instead of reviewing the whole stream or the whole broadcast, they just reviewed that one point, right? And that's why sometimes people are like, I don't want to review the whole thing. And I'm like, you don't have to review the whole thing. Just pick a part where you want to get better, review that, fix that, keep that at a solid level, and then find another point you want to improve on, and do it that way, right? So for those examples, here is this was the ECNC Volleyball Championship game, which I actually was at helping create some behind-the-scenes content for Marcus. So that was a fun game, but you can see he just clipped 34 seconds of the broadcast. And obviously this is a screenshot, but he put on social media. He said, it's another great day to be a Thunderbird, tagged all the accounts he needed to, did some hashtags, and put a little description there, and he posted that. He had that out within an hour, maybe 2 hours of the game being over. Like, that's just part of his post-game routine, is he has something recording the stream and he pulls that clip immediately. This is one that Taylor posted, obviously. Oh, go for it.
Yeah, I will say, I think that's if you guys don't take away anything from this presentation, or if you're looking for one thing that you can do, we always like to talk about one thing because Hoosiers talking to you about a bunch of different things that you can do, and he'll follow up and break it down. But if there's one thing you could do, you guys have, as a school, if you're streaming, you have loads and loads, hours of content. The huge miss for schools is that you're not posting highlights and you're letting someone else do that, like the news channel, news or whoever. Huddle is great. They're going to post, athletes can post highlights, but you as a broadcast program should own the highlights because you're the one that broadcasted the game. Even if you don't have announcers, you could cut that up and put some highlights together. And so someone could be taking notes during the game, like, okay, this is when that happened in the recording, so you can speed up that process. But huge miss from schools that are not doing this, because that extends the life of that game. If you post the highlights a week after the game, the momentum of that game is lost. It's got to be within 24, 48 hours. And a student that likes editing and wants to put that together, that's a role for them that maybe they don't want to be a part of the live broadcast. You could assign this role if they like editing, shoot them, give them the recorded file and say, hey, cut this up and, send it to me when you're done. And we would need to get the highlight package out. So you've got the content. Let's extend the life of that live stream. And then that might bring people back to watch next week's broadcast if they see that, or go to the game in person because they saw it.
Yeah, and like I say, it's something that we see, Nebraska Public Media does it, NBC does it, yes, everyone does it. And so if we are truly trying to train our students to get into the industry, this is a part of it, right? And so maybe it's not someone associated with your broadcast. Maybe it's someone in your digital media class that wants to do more social media stuff. Perfect opportunity for them. This can then go cross class, which is awesome. Or at a lot of our schools, it happens to be the same class too. So, but like Taylor said, if you like someone that edits, and honestly, it's not that hard because you're not trying to put together a bunch of camera angles. You are just taking the broadcast, finding a good start point, finding a good end point. You cut that, you render it, and you upload it. It's all it takes. As an editor, that'd be my dream job, right? It'd be boring, but it'd be my dream job to just, here's the timestamps, cut, post,
And yeah, Marcus usually does one play. He doesn't put together a whole highlight package. So you can see that's 34 seconds. And then, yeah, you can move on. I got to document his program. We got plenty of posts in FRE that you guys can check out Marcus's program to see how he's truly build a student broadcast program that's next level.
Yeah. Yeah, he is, because he's got the cool gear. He's we get to talk about him a lot, so there's definitely a lot of stuff there. So the next thing that helps, like Taylor said, that there is one thing to take away is to post those clips. So how do you do it, right? I believe in systems and workflows, right? If anything will help you win the day, it's that checklist idea, it's that responsibilities. It starts with that having the clear role outlines. Whose job is it to upload the recording to a shared file? It should probably be the producer running the software. So as long as they remember, hey, game's over, let me upload that real quick, then whoever needs to gain access to that to cut up clips can do it, right? That can be built into a workflow and a process. Again, your checklist. There's a lot of times that a teacher will be there at the end of the game taking all the equipment down themselves. It's like, I'm sorry, but your kids can follow step-by-step instructions that says, hey, for the camera, here's where the camera goes, here's where the cable goes, here's where, we take off our viewfinder monitor and we put it here. If you list out those things, then they can help you do it. Again, if they can't follow step-by-step instructions, we have a bigger problem. Like, we probably shouldn't have them helping in our broadcast till they can learn that. But create a stream team handbook for new members, for current members. We have all these handbooks in schools. We have syllabuses for classes. We have, guidelines. Like, develop it. Create one now. It's going to take a little bit of time to create it now. Create it with your current students. Let them have input on it. And then you just update it year over year. I have an example here of what we like to call the Strive Bible. Now, this is old. This is like 7 years old that York High School did, or it's not new or recent, right? But the idea is, as you watch this video go along, you know exactly how to set up a camera. You know exactly how to set up the monitor on the camera. You know how to set up the splitter to send the feed, the soundboard. You know how to set up the switcher. You know how to plug in the power for everything. You know how to set up the computers. You know how to get the switcher into the computer. You know how to set up the soundboard. You know how to open up the Wirecast files to find the right thing to stream to. And you know how to set everything up the correct way, how to crop it, how to record, how everything gets packed away. Like, again, if you show that document to a student and they come back to you and they say, I don't know how to do this, we got to work on that, right? But most of the time they won't. Most of the time a student will take that, and Taylor, I can't remember the story exactly, but I think we had someone visit a school when we were doing that going live checklist, and they had just gotten all the new gear and they were wondering how to set it all up. And basically, I think Eric went to that school and he handed the checklist to the kids. They took that checklist and they just went over to where all the gear was and started setting it up. The teacher didn't even have to say, like, here's the order. They just took that checklist. Like, I know how to go from 1 to 2 to 3. They followed it. And within 15 minutes or even less, it was all set up. And the teacher was like, whoa, like, the students just did that. I'm like, yes, it's following a checklist. It's following instructions. Most people can do that. So, and then one more to highlight here is developing your students to be leaders to help train others, right? So, this picture is from, again, back at our media workshop. I like this picture for two reasons. One, the students that are actually involved in the simulator that are sitting in the seats are kids from Sutton High School. So they're the kids that I interact with the most and I'm always checking on. But secondly, the kid that's standing up on the left with the JCC hat, this was not planned when we did our broadcast simulator, but he was there. Their group went first. They know how to use all their equipment. And then he stayed on stage the entire 2 hours we did the broadcast simulator. And as each new group came up, Taylor was doing the social media clips and getting some exit interviews from students and teachers. I was doing a debrief so that I could gain knowledge for what we could do better, what they thought, kind of give them some advice. And so nobody was really there to help the next group get settled in and kind of know what they were doing. And so Marcus and his student were there and they walked through and they answered questions. And as it was going on, if there was something the student was like, I forgot how to do this, he would quickly jump up and say, Here's how you do it. And I was like, we didn't ask for it. It just kind of naturally happened, but it reminded me and Taylor, because we talked about it, like there are students who can lead that because they run it enough themselves. They will find a way to connect with another student and tell them exactly how to do it, right? And so that was a pretty cool thing to see in action. We preach it a lot, like, let your students lead and mentor to their peers, but to see it in action when we didn't expect it was pretty awesome. And then kind of the final thing here as we wrap up and we get to our takeaways. Remembering the heart of live streaming, remembering the why that you are doing this, right? We have a school, Omaha Central, and their broadcasting program, is founded by the school foundation, right? So it's Dr. Bigsby over at the foundation who, is really good about promoting their stuff and getting the alumni to help fund and buy new equipment and make sure that the program gets to keep, thriving and going on. And one of the things that I've been doing recently for them, because they really care, is they have alumni. I mean, I think Susie Buffett's on the list of Omaha Central alumni. So there's a name to shout out. But they have alumni all over the country who watch the game. And I never would have thought that, right? Like, until I started helping them run some more advanced analytics, like, I was like, oh, we got people watching from, Washington State. Oh, that's a town in Canada. That's a city in Canada that I recognize. Or this is over in Alaska. Like, and I would give them that. And the cool thing was, because Dr. Bigsby has a list of where all the alumni are and where they're currently at, we could kind of trace those views in those cities back to people who are watching from afar. And so he, then he can go out and say, hey, we've kind of seen that you've been watching. We appreciate you. And he can go do those extra things to thank the alumni and to really see, like, people do care about it. Again, it's a source of pride for Omaha Central to have the alumni foundation that they do, and to also have a broadcast that looks the way it looks, connecting people back to Central High activities. And that's just one school in the state. And I'm sure there are other schools that are like that, right? It's not just Central, but Central is the one that I know about. They always talk to me about it. So really good example. And again, the argument that if we live stream, no one's going to show up to the game. Well, that's been proven wrong time and time again, right? In fact, sometimes I believe that people showed up to the game because they saw the broadcast and they said, that looks cool, I want to be there, right? As a person who has basketball running through my veins, right? My dad's a head basketball coach. I've been going to games since I was born, right? I will always prefer going to the game in person than watching online. But I really, really love watching a really good broadcast when I know that I can't get to the game. And so I go off the assumption that most people are like me, which can be terrible sometimes because not everyone is. But most people would probably prefer to be at the game, and your live stream is a great tool for those who can't make it, right? And that's why we're doing it. The first step is we are providing a service to people who are not able to make it to the game. The second thing we're doing is we are giving students a learning opportunity to grow in their skills in the career of broadcasting. This goes to all of the kids that I know that have gone to, places like UNL to do Husker Vision, to do video production, that are working for ESPN or Fox or you name it, or local news stations. Like, these kids wanted to do it. They got the opportunity in high school. They took advantage of that opportunity. They took advantage of opportunities in college, and now they've got a career out of it. And we've got plenty of list of students who have done that. And there are plenty that are high school seniors right now that I could see, if they really pursue it, they've got a really good shot, right? Because they've already taken advantage of it. And so as long as they continue down that path, they're going to be, on the ESPNs or the different networks at some point, right? So that's the reason we're doing it, right? That's the intention behind it. We are providing a service, but we are also providing the students a learning opportunity. And with those two things in mind, like, that's your why. If it ever gets tiring, which I know it does. I mean, I only went to 2 out of the 4 days of state volleyball and I was exhausted, right? And I gave it my all. And actually, that was a rarity because usually I'm there for all 4 days. And so after 2 days exhausted me, I wondered how in the world did I ever pull off 4? I think Taylor could probably attest that I looked like a zombie after doing the 4 days. Like it takes a lot of energy to do 48 games. I mean, it's no small number of what we do at state, but we do it to provide the opportunities to the students and to broadcast it for those that can't be there. And so the why will always keep motivating you and pushing you to do more and do better. So with all of that said, that was 55 minutes of a lot of information. 2 things. This is being recorded. You can go back and watch it again. If there was something that you were like, I want to focus more on that, and you forgot to write it down, you go back and watch it. But the second thing is start small. And we mentioned it multiple times, and I'm going to mention it again because it is the one thing that I have applied starting small to everything that I do in my life. And to build, right, one event, one thing, one improvement at a time. It's the idea. I mean, the book is, it's Atomic Habits is really, the book that's been made popular about, doing one small thing at a time. But it really does help. And so we're not saying that you've got to become an ESPN production tomorrow, but we are saying that a lot of you guys that have currently streamed have an entire fall season of broadcast to look back on and say, okay, we got through football and volleyball. What's one thing we want to improve for our first basketball game? And then after you improve that, what's the next thing that you want to improve for the next basketball game? So that by the end of the season of winter sports, you've got, you look light years different than where you started, right? But again, the idea is intention, right? You got to be intentional about it. Next thing to do is to empower your students with those expectations and trust. Those checklists, crew responsibilities, start making those because it's one of those things that it seems so small. And that's the really unique thing about it is a small thing to do that yields so much benefit, and it costs you your return on investment. If we're talking business, your ROI is huge on making those documents. And yeah, like Taylor said, I can share the slide. I'll share the slides too as well. I'll make sure those are public. But doing the small things is really huge. And then empowering your students with it. If you are a school that is working with us and you have our broadcast education curriculum, use those resources. One of your, not to brag about myself, but one of your greatest resources that you have access to is me. If you have an idea, please talk to me or please talk to Taylor or schedule a meeting, or, the bullet point number 4, utilize future ready educators. The fact that you are in a community of people who are doing the same thing as you, that have new ideas, different ideas, a lot of different stuff. Ask questions, share what worked for you, and encourage teachers. I had a call, it was earlier this week, I think it was Monday morning, with a teacher that, they said, hey, we got through our fall season and realized that our crew communication system is not good. We need something different. So we sat down, and it was supposed to be a 45-minute meeting. We ended up going an hour. And it wasn't the fact that we were talking about useless things. We just had a very meaningful conversation about the direction they want to go. And so that was huge. And that's, again, if you're a school that works with us, email me. I try to keep my schedule pretty full and pretty busy, but I will make time for you, right? This is why my role as director of customer success, I want to see you guys succeed, right? That's at the end of the day. If you guys aren't succeeding, I'm not doing my job right, right? And so I want to see that happen. And again, just encourage you guys to utilize all the resources you have. So I do have one action item for you now, besides starting small, especially those that are on the live stream, or if you're watching the recording. I want you to post and share your wins, the one thing that you want to improve in your first winter broadcast. I want it to be a post. I want to help hold you guys accountable to make sure you actually do it. I want the community to see that you are starting this winter sports season with intention, right? again, your next stream that you do can be the best one yet because of a simple little mindset shift that you did, right? You now are intentionally trying to do the best you can. And when you think about that and you improve it, you've already won. Whether in theory it actually is the best broadcast or not, the fact that you're going into it saying, here's the one thing I want to improve, and you're focused on that, you've already won, right? So that's why it's share your wins, not ask a question. So I want to know, what are you doing? And then if it's something that you know you want to do, but you need help or you need some more guidance, reach out to us. We'd love to help. And then my typical last slide that I put on every webinar I've done, it actually has updated pictures this time because we've had a few events happen where we've been able to get some fresh student pictures. But this is the media workshop plus state volleyball. And like, I look at that screen and I see those kids smiling, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is what it's about, right? Like, they're pursuing this, and the ones that aren't smiling are like locked in, like they're focused. And they're serious about, following this as a profession. And so it brings me absolute joy to see this. And man, it fires me up. Like I said, we're at an hour, so I respect your time. We're just about done. We are done, right? So thanks for joining. But clearly I want to keep going. Like, Taylor, I'm on a roll. You got to stop me. Like, I'll just keep talking.
Yep, let's keep the conversation going in the community. Look forward to you guys sharing that. And as Hoosier shared, you can DM, email him. He'll follow up with all the stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you guys next time.